Well, geez, last year was a pretty good year for movies. That means 2015 can only get even better with this sweet-ass lineup of films that can't possibly let the audience down.
Dude, fuck Hollywood.
Number 5. Avengers Age of Ultron. If this were a Greek myth, Disney would be the gods of Olympus, Joss Whedon would be Sisyphus, and the hype surrounding Age of Ultron would be the boulder he would attempt to carry up the top of a mountain, only to fall under the increasing weight and fatigue and have it all come crashing down in ever painful condemnation from those up above. Too harsh? Is the movie bad? No. Is it the second coming of Christ like everyone made it out to be? Again, no. Age of Ultron may be a solid product, but I found that it has too many chinks on its surface to really give it a glowing recommendation. I'm not going to list off the specific complaints since it's really a checklist procedure at this point, and they're mostly in line with what other people have objected to. Rather, I'd like to discuss whose fault it really is for the film being such a letdown. Disney? Whedon? The hype? It's actually all of the above and then some. Whedon, bucking under the pressure of following such a monumental hit with an even bigger monumental hit, Disney focusing on selling a product rather than a movie, the internet achieving rabid pulsating boners whenever news or a trailer hit the web, the jackasses on social media who can't understand fucking character development. The proverbial boulder just kept getting bigger and heavier to lift, and the end result was an avalanche of disappointment surrounding an average final product. At least with Ant-Man, Marvel's year in the movies wasn't a total disaster, but that leaves me wondering if Disney will have learned its lesson by the time Infinity War is ready to shoot. Probably not, because the real tragedy of Sisyphus is that he was doomed to push the boulder up the mountain again and again and again. Number 4, Mockingjay, Part 2. I'm definitely not the only person who's blue in the face about studios splitting a final book in a series into 2 movies in order to rack up more profit. All it does is slow down the film's pacing to a snail's crawl, and no example is more frighteningly apparent than the final Hunger Games installment. The film is either a sloth or a cheetah! What the fuck? When it comes to plot progression, no in between. It takes a sweet ass time during the dialogue segments and the world building, and right before he doze off from boredom, a major plot point just blasts in and invigorates you with just enough excitement to be at risk of giving a shit! It brings the movie's quality down, and it takes you to the brink of bringing you out of your emotional investment into the characters, which is what you'd expect for the studio demanding 80 minutes worth of material to be stretched into 2.5 hours like the yeast-covered whores they are. To be fair, it's not all bad. The acting is great, Jennifer Lawrence is fantastic as always, and whenever the set pieces finally spring up, they are indeed riveting, and the ending is proper. I haven't read the book, but I've heard that it's different, but fuck it. If you wouldn't have an ending like it was in the book, then read the fucking book, goddammit! After 4 years, this is how the Hunger Games ends. Not with a bang, but with a slow whisper. Maybe if the finale had been one 3-hour epic, it may have had a much bigger impact. But they're gonna keep splitting these things into 2, and people are going to keep seeing them. So really, it's your fault. It's your fault! Number 3, Joy. Poor Jennifer Lawrence. She's not to blame for any of this, just the outside factors beyond her control. If I were to rank David O. Russell's recent efforts in the form of golf vernacular, Silver Linings Playbook would be an eagle, The Fighter would be a birdie, American Hustle would be par for the course, and Joy would be a bogey. This film is boring. There's a reason why the trailers and the marketing for this movie were so esoteric. If I told you that the plot of this film was that a single mother of 2 living with their parents comes up with the invention of a new kind of mop, pitching the idea to investors, pitching the product to distributors, pitching the appeal to customers, and aggressively negotiating the rights to the patent, would that pique your interest and convince you to drop $10 to see this thing? Probably not. It's all business. Seriously, they businessed the shit out of this movie. Don't get me wrong, some business dramas can be captivating if done correctly, but this is not the case here. You can't just throw Murphy's Law into the script and consider that a sufficient story. You need diverse characterization. Aside from Joy herself, the other major characters are either one-dimensional or just plain unlikable, tearing her down at every possible moment. The actors may be trying their damnedest, but if the material itself is mediocre, there's only so much they can do. This film is supposed to empower women, right? I don't think most women would appreciate the message that those closest to you will let you down or have ulterior motives, or that you have to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, go for broke, do everything yourself, and maybe, just maybe, you'll end up in a bittersweet epilogue. Just some food for thought.
Number 2, Jurassic World. You know Jurassic World? You put me in a really awkward position between me and my audience. You know? I spoke up for you. I said you were gonna be a good fella, you were gonna be alright, and now you just come shambling in on here with your broken narrative and such. I let my audience down because of you. You let me down.
Jurassic World is a classic example of taking one step forward and 2 steps back. It took advantage of our nostalgia for Jurassic Park and proceeded to hammer that prospect in without even knowing what it meant for us. The preference of CG over practical effects, the uninspired villain and motivation for said uninspired villain, the side plot involving those fucking kids and half-assedly threading them and the main plot together, and literally reminding us of Jurassic Park because subtlety is overrated. Yes, Chris Pratt may be cool and the last 15 minutes are gold, but the majority of the movie tries to put a square peg in a round slot, and instead of trying to correct these, they're content with just mashing it in until it fits, leaving the peg mashed up, coarse, and ugly. Was I wrong in my trailer breakdown video? Yes. Am I going to take the video down? No. It's what I thought at the time, and if I deleted the video, it could be construed as me denying having those thoughts in the first place. I'm just gonna own up to it and admit disappointment. That, and I'm just too fucking lazy to hit the delete button. 2015 may have finally been the year where the important lesson of hyping a piece of media to unobtainable expectation where it will inevitably disappoint people sunk in. I just hope that sinks in for you too, because life is going to be that much more dull if you don't. Before number 1, here's the lightning round of more The Good Dinosaur. Not terrible as some make it out to be, but the concept of The Land Before Time being directed by John Ford doesn't mix as well as Pixar would have hoped. Crimson Peak. It suffers the same fate as The Village due to it being horribly mismarketed. It's a Victorian love story that has ghosts in it serving as clues rather than scares. I liked it, but it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Trainwreck. Oh look, a comedian famous for slut-shaming herself wrote a movie starring her being a slut. How surprising. How original. And that's it. I didn't have the chance or the interest in seeing Chappie or Tomorrowland because of the reviews surrounding it and simply not caring. So fuck it. The biggest disappointment of 2015 is Spectre. Well, lightning can't strike twice, although we should have learned this lesson when Quantum of Solace was released, but I guess we didn't. It's not offensively bad, but Spectre is boring. It's amazing that something like this, which let me remind you took $250 million to make, where great care was put into the stunt work, cinematography, and practical visual effects, comes off as passé. It's possibly because Spectre is the most traditional Bond movie that Daniel Craig has taken part of, and traditional may have been misconstrued for uninspired. The classic tropes are here: sleek cars, cool gadget, Bond using his dick to put in women and pulling information out. Daniel Craig is clearly on autopilot this go-around, Moneypenny and Q aren't utilized enough, and the film wastes Christoph Waltz's talent again. Maybe, just maybe, he should stick to working with Tarantino. So, good luck with that, buddy. Skyfall may have planted the seeds of bringing those traditions back, but Spectre bloomed under awkward circumstances and wilted as a result. However, the most glaring aspect was that 2 other films this year that straight up lampooned Bond and its staples ended up being vastly superior to the actual Bond movie itself. It actually made me put the entire franchise in retrospect to see if it was actually that prolific in the first place. Aside from all that, with almost everyone agreeing that it's time for a new actor to play the spy, where is the studio gonna go from there? Reboot it again? because that's gonna end up being a stale cliche tossed in with a recycling bin filled with all those other Bond analogs. I'll be looking at this inevitable reboot with bated breath, but as it stands, all the sleek camera work and all the money put in will never assuage me from seeing Spectre again.
I don't intend on seeing bad movies on purpose, and I stick by that statement. But out of the majority of the films that I saw this year, I'd say that most of them met my expectations. But for 2016, oh boy, so many tentpoles. There are no way that every single one of them can live up to the hype. So I bet that the candidates for this year are already up in your radar. I'm PMRants, and I can't wait to come out of the theater with you all feeling suicidal that something totally beyond our control wasn't what we wanted. Thank you for watching.